guys want to talk more?
Okay. It's 5:30, so we're going to go ahead and start the council briefing. Mayor Latham is unable to join us for the briefing at this time, so welcome everyone to the last council briefing of the decade. Well, depending on how you count the decade. We'll need to get into that. I'm going to turn it over to HR Director Ian Hughes, who is going to discuss the process for the city manager's annual evaluation.
Chief, I've got
Thank
does
you.
everybody have a copy of the,
This is what was in the packet.
yeah, okay. Well, it's hard to believe, but on January 27th, it'll be 1 year that our wonderful city manager, Mike Stefopoulos, has been with us. And so in his contract, there's provision that says the city council shall review the city manager's job performance just once annually, with the first review being on or before the city manager's anniversary. So this is the first time we've done this process. Our former city manager went for many years without an annual review, so it's not something that we have a template that we've done or used in the past. So I did a little research and got some information from the ICMA, and I provided you with a kind of a sample template for the way to measure and evaluate the city manager. And just wanted to know if you had any thoughts or feedback on the questions, or the process, proposed process would be that each council member would complete the evaluation, they would turn it in to me, and I would compile it, and that the anticipation would be that there would be a special council meeting on the 21st, which I think is the day after Martin Luther King Day, right before the other council meeting. We'll give an opportunity for the city council to talk about their evaluation and perhaps make recommendation for any kind of salary compensation for the city manager. So that's sort of a concept of a way of approaching this, but we're certainly open and looking for direction from you guys.
Number 6, 7, 8, supervision, staffing, and citizen relations, backwards from 6, 7, 8, that was 8, 7, 6. We don't really interact with him on that, okay? And I thought we agreed that he would have a 360 evaluation, so this would be good for staff to fill out certain pieces, as well as some kind of anybody who's interacted with City Hall or with the city manager who are citizens, that they would get certain sections of this. But we don't interact with him in that way, especially staffing. We're pretty much, we're not there doing the nitty gritty. So it's just,
So I'm trying to understand, so you're recommending a different approach where there would be a 360 evaluation versus an evaluation by the city council?
for
some pieces of it.
The city council would be part of the 360, but also the staff, the department heads, citizens, any organizations that the city works with that he's involved with. So the energy, yeah. So this way, the reason why the 360 will give him information on his performance from all different viewpoints, not just from us, and that will give him a chance to grow and improve on certain things. So it's a far more constructive evaluation.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is for staff, should there be anonymity there in case they're not happy with them, and you usually get more compliance if people think there's not going to be any type of comeback.
Correct, and they should be going through HR, and he should never see the names that are attached to that.
Right.
So he'll know the category, but he shouldn't see the names.
So do you all want to, do you
They
all
don't see the names, it's personnel.
So
want to give us some direction on which questions you might want staff to answer? And whether or not that would be, are you talking about department heads or, you know, we're not going to, I presume you don't want us to send this out to all city employees, right?
Yeah, mainly
So
department
we're
heads, the
looking
ones
for
that
some
he
direction from you as to the process that you want to see.
the individuals he interacts with most. So there's the department heads and then the street level staff. I take it he's not there at the phone and Beatrice Energy going, so did you pick it up on the first ring? He's contacting the department heads, and I don't know if he goes a layer below the department heads or if he just stops at department heads and then they push it through the departments.
On occasion, I mean, I think as a rule, you know, the first point of contact is usually the department head, and then naturally he does interact with employees at all levels of the organization. But for purposes of this, you know, I would imagine we need to define who is going to be providing input on this. It would make sense to keep it at the department head level.
But maybe you could also open it so that the department heads could share it with people in their department that they know maybe have worked with them.
Leave it to their discretion
Yeah.
and have discussion and fill it out. I think that's a good idea.
So that would be on 7, 8, 7 and 8.
6,
7.
6, 7, and 8. Well,
And
that's
6 is
citizens, so
Oh,
7
that's
and 8
right,
would
yeah.
be.
Right,
the
and then that would
department
be
heads.
anybody that you have records that has contacted, who have worked with the city manager, that they have interaction. I don't know how many,
I think
because
it's-
we're not involved in this, I don't know how many
Right.
citizens
I
actually.
think that would be very difficult.
Do we do
to
annual
contact.
surveys of the employees?
We do.
And I mean, isn't that, gives them the opportunity to give direction? I'm guessing that's
We
anonymous
do
as
annual
well, right?
surveys of internal surveys for customer service. We don't include the city manager in that. We do include the city manager's office, kind of in general, but, you know, no, we don't get specific feedback
Right,
on the city manager during that.
but it should give some kind of indication that they're, I mean, like, what we do an internal one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Then, I mean, you should be able to get some idea if something's not going right from that.
Yes,
Okay.
true, yeah.
So,
So, yeah, I'm looking forward to filling this in. Once you get everything together, are we giving Mike an opportunity to reply to some of them, or if he has issues that he wants us to consider?
I think that would, if that's what you all,
I mean, I'd like to,
Yeah.
I'd like to have them fill out a self-evaluation.
okay. So according to this, we have this coming back to Ann on the 15th, and for the council meeting, which would be, it says the 22nd, but I think it's actually the 21st, is that right?
Yeah, Saturday.
If you have a special council meeting on the 21st, so during that week, if you all want Mike to have the opportunity to review it, that's what we'll do.
That's the whole
Yeah.
purpose.
So he could, to review it before the meeting, so that way you can all discuss
So
on the
7,
21st.
so 7 and 8 will be the department heads, and as far as citizen relations, I think that would be pretty difficult to try to identify the person that the city managers have, communicated with over the last year, so any suggestions on?
I think if you want to include him in the survey that anybody can fill out, I don't think that we need to actively go to people that he interacted with on an issue.
Right,
I don't think that's necessary nor valuable, because a lot of his interactions are disgruntled people, so they're not gonna give him a fair
That's
shake
true.
anyway. So I
That's
don't
probably
see the point.
well, the survey that I was talking about is the annual survey that we do with the employees,
Right.
and that's not gonna take place between now and January 21st.
Sure.
So we're not gonna be able to get any specific feedback between now and then.
Well, and I mean,
From that survey.
if this is
I
just
think something's not in the future.
so, if this
Yeah, in
is
the
just
future, we can do that, for sure.
how we see things, I mean, I've had feedback from citizens regarding their interactions with Mr. Stefopoulos. So it's appropriate here, it's an appropriate question that I feel comfortable filling in because, I've had feedback. So,
And I have two, so.
Right.
yeah.
So are you saying that you all feel like number 6, citizen relations, is something that you could evaluate him on without additional feedback from us?
well, no, to Georgette's point, and correct me if I'm wrong, I still think it's important to also have the staff feedback too.
Right, she's asking about the citizen feedback.
Specifically
Oh,
question 6.
specifically, it's hard
I
to.
think we all agreed 7 and 8 will go to.
7 and 8 will
department
be for
heads.
department heads.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to quantify it, or it's hard to even set that in motion between now and 15th of January.
Right, right, the citizen portion?
Right.
Yes.
But I think it is, go ahead. Yeah, I think it's an opportunity though, as we
As
seek
we move
citizen
forward.
feedback in the future. And I just want to say, after having been on this council for 7 years and never actually administering a city manager review, I think this is a great first step, but I think it's something that also could be, you know, after we go through the first year, we will, once we've used it as a tool, we'll be able to make some tweaks and changes, you know, from both sides.
Sure.
And I'd also be interested to see what other communities are doing as well, or what's standard throughout the state of Florida.
Well, honestly, in a lot of my reviews, this came from the ICMA, and I
Okay.
found that this was used fairly frequently throughout many cities.
Okay.
A lot of cities, the city manager did provide a self-evaluation beforehand, a kind of, I'll call it a brag sheet, kind of these are things I accomplished sort of thing. I did see that in my research,
Okay.
that sometimes the city manager provided that, and honestly, this was used quite a bit throughout the ones that I looked at, you know.
I think the self-evaluation is necessary too, for him to talk about a lot of things that he does that we don't hear about.
Right.
So I think that, and obviously citizens and everybody else that be privileged to that too, so.
So
And
do
we
you
need that
all want
before
to?
we fill this
You-
out.
That's what I was going to say. You want to see a self-evaluation prior to turning these back into Ann, so.
And it would be
And you're going
nice,
to be on vacation next week, so.
I mean, it'd be nice too if he included, aside from the accomplishments, things that he would like to work on in the coming year and that sort of thing too, so.
So why don't we bump ours back and let him finish his by
I
the
mean, that's probably-
21st date, and then we can finish ours by the next council date.
Okay.
That the next council date, which would be the first one in February. Or you all can call a special meeting to do the evaluation. I mean, our recommendation was to do it on the, call a special meeting prior to the January 21st meeting, that you can do the evaluation. Whatever you see fit, you know, if you want to call.
Can we do it at a briefing or no?
You can, as long as we notice it as a
Yeah,
special,
I would
it
prefer
would,
to
it
do
would
it
be a
before the
special
briefing.
council meeting, because you all will
We
take
turn them all
action.
in, we turn them all in before the council meeting in February, and we address it at the briefing before that February council
Talk
meeting.
about it.
And talk about it.
Okay, and then.
That's
and-
my suggestion.
And then you all will have to take action with a vote on the amount of the increase and the overall evaluation.
So the city manager will provide a self-assessment by January 21st, and then special meeting will be called the first meeting in February for consideration of evaluation of the city manager.
Yep. Is that good for you, Mike?
Just to chime in, I don't have a problem with doing a self-evaluation, but I'm not sure if I should use the same template that you're going to be grading me on. Because if I perceive my performance to be different than you all perceive my performance to be, I wouldn't want my opinion to influence what you put down for your grade. What I'd rather do is maybe a written synopsis of what I think the organization has accomplished over the last year, with me being in the CEO position, and then you being able to dissect information from that for use into your evaluation using the template, if that's the template you so choose to use.
Was there a self-evaluation separate form that you
It
found?
was more what Mike was talking about, that generally city manager would submit their accomplishments, objectives, and recommendations.
Okay.
That's generally what I saw through most cities, and that was used as a basis for evaluation by the city councils. So it was as Mike has described.
And that's
I'm
consistent
a
with
little
the
uncomfortable
process.
giving myself a 5 if you all want to give me a 3.
No, no.
That's
It's
where
so
I'm
much
at.
easier when we can put it side by
I have a
side.
feeling, I have a feeling you would be tough on yourself.
Well,
You're
I mean,
absolutely correct.
I would say, but, you know, the organization I work for, that's what we did though. I mean, as an employee, I did my evaluation with the same form that my boss did my evaluation on. So, you know,
I would recommend against it.
I'm inclined to agree, but the process that we use in-house is more like the one Mike described. We ask the employees to submit to us a list of their accomplishments, anything they want to bring to our attention, and it's much more open, kind of free form, and then we use that in the evaluation, as opposed to having them fill out their evaluation. So,
Yeah, I would
you know,
never have them fill
there's a
this
number
out
of different ways
themselves.
to go about it, but, so, are you all comfortable with the process as Mike described it? He will provide you with a narrative?
yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm also fine if he filled this out too, so I could go into
Okay.
Do we want a copy of the department head's evaluation prior to our discussion?
Yeah, that probably makes sense.
I think that I would like that. So if you want to get
Yes.
them moving on that as well.
Okay, so you all would like to have Mike's narrative and the department head's input by January 21st?
Yes.
If it's
And
possible.
then, okay, sure. And then plan to discuss and
Then
take
we
action
will
on the
do
first
our
meeting in February.
evaluations.
You'll do your individual evaluations, send them to Ann to compile,
Yep.
and then you'll have your discussion at a meeting, the first meeting in February. Either schedule a special meeting prior to or during the regular meeting. What is everyone's preference on that?
During the briefing, I
I
thought was.
thought the briefing.
During a brief, well, it will have to be
It'll be a
noticed as a
special-
special council meeting, since you all will be taking action.
Needs to- It should, by contract, it,
Well, can
no
we-
later than January 28th.
Can we discuss the evaluations at the briefing, but put it on the agenda?
Take action and,
Yeah,
absolutely,
okay, yeah, but that's what-
absolutely. So you'll
I don't think it
have,
requires a special meeting, just address it at the council meeting after.
have a briefing discussion and an agenda item that same night.
Yep.
Got it. Okay?
And do we have a deadline for when we need to turn ours in?
Okay, I'll get the calendar. I would need it at least 7 days before the council meeting, to compile it, and because it would also be public record and make sure I got it all put together, so. Let me look at the calendar. So the first meeting in February is the 3rd, February 3rd, so I would need it by the 29th of January.
Okay.
So you would get it by the 21st, and you would need to complete your portion by the 29th of January.
When you get the final version done, will you email it to us in a Word doc so
Yeah.
we can do it? So I don't have
Prior to the
to, so I
briefing.
don't have to
Thank you.
handwrite.
You can modify
No.
PDF, come on.
No, I just don't want to handwrite the thing. You won't be able to read it.
You want a Word document,
Yeah.
not a PDF.
So you
I
can,
think
you
a full-
can,
I sent a full
you can
form.
do it in a PDF too now. I mean, you can.
Yeah, fillable PDF.
I can do a full PDF.
So if you get it by the 29th, we can turn it around and get it out to you all on that Thursday like we normally do with the agendas? Is
Okay.
that, would that
Well, the
be?
29th is Wednesday, and it's only, 7, I can put that together and have
Okay.
it for Thursday.
And then we can email it to everyone.
Sure,
Okay.
that'll work.
All right.
Now, to your point, this puts us 5 days after the contract date that the evaluation is supposed to be done by. Are we all comfortable with that?
Well,
It's actually one day.
This is the fellow.
it
We
will
have to
actually
do it by the
be,
29th. They'll be on record by the 28th. He just won't receive it
Okay.
in time.
So what
his
is the
anniversary
contract
date
say?
is the
28th.
That it has to be,
27th.
It says the,
I mean, 28th is his high, which is high, but 28th.
Right, but so, we can prorate if there's
Well,
a,
yeah,
right,
right, absolutely.
so
It's
you're
just
not
that
gonna,
we won't have an evaluation on record until slightly after the date.
okay.
Only an issue if one member of the contract party makes it an issue. I don't intend to make that an
Not gonna make an issue of
Yeah,
it?
thank you.
oh, we'll see how the
Can we
evaluation
have
comes out. I don't think it's an issue.
Alright.
I know how this works.
Does everyone have a copy, or have you all seen a copy of Mike's employment agreement? Anyone need a copy of that? And section 7, salary, 7B, there are some guidelines for determining the amount of the increase. It says that you should consider the amount of the increase for the department heads so, I mean, just to give you all a kind of a quick briefing on what happened in this fiscal year for the department heads. All the city employees got 3% on October 1, the non-union and the line employees got 3% on October 1, that included the department heads. And then they're eligible for up to 3% on their annual evaluation date. So for this year, a maximum of 6% for the department heads would be the guideline that you should consider.
When will the department heads know their raises?
When they have their evals. So everyone got 3% retroactive to October 1. You all approved that at the last meeting, I believe. And then everybody's evaluation date differs. So on their evaluation date, after completing their evaluation, they are recommended for either 2, 2.5, or 3%. based on performance.
When, do we know when that's, will it be prior to our February meeting?
Not all of them. Everybody's evaluation date is different. So they're going to be throughout the fiscal year,
Okay.
So
right?
everybody will get a raise, either 2, 2.5, or 3%?
Everybody will get a
Well, they'll
raise.
get the original one.
Everyone got
We'll
3%,
get-
at
and then-
least 3% on October 1. The minimum of 3% that you all approved for all city employees, the department heads all got 3%. Okay,
But the
so,
other portion of it, everyone's getting at least 2% on the other portion.
On their
of it, too.
evaluation, they'll get 2, 2.5, or 3.
What happens if they, if they have a bad evaluation?
They don't get an increase.
Oh, they don't.
So it can be
they
a
don't.
0%.
It can be,
Okay, that's what I was.
That, I
trying to
think that's what he's getting at.
Okay,
Like to the
yeah.
lowest.
yeah, so that's why I say a maximum of 6% in this fiscal year is the general guideline.
Mhm.
Minimum of 3%.
Minimum of 3, maximum of 6, that's correct.
Just back to the actual form really quick, while you guys are doing this, the one thing that I noticed right off the bat is I like when there's lines right underneath each section for feedback under each section, so we don't need to do anything now, but if anybody else agrees with that as they go through it.
I can just-
No, don't,
Okay.
let's just do,
You mean like a section for notes?
Yeah.
with under each.
After each one, or
under
after each section? Okay.
Under each section.
Question or so. Okay.
Under each question, yes, sorry. But that was the only thing, just to put direct feedback right there.
Sure.
Anything else on city manager land?
Anyone else?
Just talking about hens. Heather Ireland. Come on up.
Do you want to go there for that?
I see that.
And as for you guys,
Oh my God. Fantastic.
I mean, I need that education, no curates approved this year.
I got some in your mail.
What's that?
I don't think they're doing the curates approved.
Oh, okay. Oh, they're right, you're not.
I got your mail.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, thanks. A little background on how we got to where we are. We had a resident with some chickens and other small farm animals that a call came into animal control for her. And animal control came out and said, oh, you're fine, you can have the chickens, no big deal. Code enforcement came out and said, no, you can't. So we were kind of aware of that discrepancy in our code where Chapter 5 seemingly could be interpreted to say, sure, you can have chickens. But when you went over to the Land Development Code, chickens were excluded from the definition of household pets. So the applicant came to see us and we basically said you have to change. It started with the Land Development Code only to allow them to happen. But as we got deeper into the language of what it would actually need to say in terms of the regulatory stuff, Denise said it was a better fit for Chapter 5, Animals and Fowl, which isn't something that our department has the ability to amend. So where we are now with this is essentially, it'd be two components of it. One would change the definition of household pets to allow chickens, no more goats, that has been taken out of the equation. And the other piece of it, which I think you have a copy of this ordinance, or draft ordinance, to amend Chapter 5, would be more of the regulatory piece of getting into where they're allowed, how many, some of the details on what size the coops and enclosures and things like that. So Denise did a really good job drafting this and using examples from our neighboring cities, Atlantic Beach and Neptune. There are some highlighted sections that I think those are areas we want a little more clarification on from you guys. Or direction on how you want this to read.
I found some commonalities among all three of them, and, most of the commonalities included, whether or not they were permit fees, whether or not enforcement, typically by code enforcement, but there were some areas of vagrancy. Two of them did it as pilot program, and then later brought it in as regular regulation. One of them went straight into the regulation. So I did my best to take what I think made sense for draft stage, but there are questions still. Now, I did speak with Councilor Golden earlier today, who had some very specific language that she thought should be in here, and I'll repeat that for you just so you can hear what she had to say about that. If you have a copy of it, at page 2 of 6,
I don't know if that's okay. Do you have another one?
I think I did. It should be in there.
That's in the car.
no
I
problem.
think I have a scribble on that.
First and foremost, I
Thank you.
misnumbered, mislabeled. I have one too many Cs, so, at the second C.
Yeah, but that's usually okay.
Right,
There you go.
yes, that will be fixed. Again, this is good for just fleshing out things that need to be fixed and getting it in the best possible shape for you before you ever see it on first reading. So, at the second C, where it's talking about hens shall be kept within an enclosed pen according to the requirements of this article, Councilor Goding had seen some really great language from one of the other, I think it was Jacksonville,
And Neptune Beach.
and Neptune Beach, that goes on to really expand it to ensure that no chicken can trespass, basically, on someone else's property. You know, it's bad
But if they're
trespassing,
invited,
that's
it's
okay.
okay.
Why did the chicken That changes everything.
Yeah.
But that would change that language, to kind of expand it to say that chickens shall not be permitted to trespass. In other words, you're responsible for keeping it in your coop and making sure it's not going on your neighbor's land, and getting their dogs and cats and whatnot riled up. To trespass on neighboring properties, be released or set free, and shall be kept within the coop and enclosure at all times. So I'm seeing agreement that that's probably good language to
Do
keep
the
the
neighboring
trespassing.
cities all require permits?
They do typically all require permits. 2 of them had capped it at like 25 for the whole city. Although Heather has done a lot of talking with the other jurisdictions.
Neptune Beach had a limit of 25, and Atlantic Beach had a limit of 50 at the time. Neither one of them reached the maximum. That was back in the spring when I talked to them. I haven't checked again, but I can't imagine they have gotten any more.
Total coops, not total chickens. right?
Total permits, so
Yes.
they both allow 5 maximum.
Okay.
both
What does the permit entail? Does somebody have to go out and inspect the chickens or the coops or anything?
Not according
Fine.
to the ordinance. It really is just to make sure that we know they have them. I've got 5 chickens. So if somebody complains, right, and says, my neighbor has chickens and I don't think they're permitted. We look up and say, yes, they did. They got a permit and they're allowed to have their 5 chickens. It's not so that we go out and inspect the chicken coops.
Yeah.
We're not taking it.
We do a lot of work.
Right, and their permit applications, I mean, they're simple. I printed them both out, they're just one page. And really, from our perspective anyway, it's making sure that they're in the right zoning district with the right kind of property. So I
Right.
look at it similar to food trucks. They can give us a site plan or
Yeah.
a survey
Yeah.
showing where the coop's gonna go, so we make sure it meets setbacks. We don't go out and inspect food trucks after they've picked a location,
Sure.
unless we get a complaint.
Okay.
We just want to know where they are. So I would say it's a similar type of permit.
And
Okay.
then you renew it yearly, or you just get the permit and it's indefinite?
I don't know that we addressed that in here, did we? I think the other ones are a one-time thing. I don't think it's annually.
How do you know when they don't have them anymore?
They'd have to self-report, probably, unless, now, we do have some, and that's another consideration for you guys. The other jurisdictions have, thou shalt not just slaughter your chickens, and thou shalt not release your chickens. Some of them go a little further and say, animal control will maintain a list of approved locations for the surrender of hens. That's pretty big on us to put on your staff to say that I'm going to keep. What our ordinance currently says, or what this currently says, is basically that you have to, you can't just take them to animal control, you can't just release them, and you can't slaughter them.
I laugh when I read that. I was picturing chickens getting walking down the road.
Open the door.
And just from my opinion, what are the negatives with having chickens other than possible odor?
I mean, we've had some people express their opposition due to, disease and flies, noise, odor. That's really the only things that I've heard
Okay.
related to that.
I mean, do they attract other wildlife? I mean, because this
I would imagine
Atlantic
they
Beach and
could.
Neptune Beach have had more like coyotes and
Right.
stuff.
I think that the requirement of having a safe enclosure for them
Okay.
would mitigate some of that. If it's a covered, really chicken wire enclosure, predators are more unlikely to get in
Sure.
there and
advantage
Yeah,
of that.
I
there's,
mean, the odor from 5 chickens shouldn't be that bad.
it's not, I mean, I 2 doors down from me, they have chickens, and I didn't even know they had them.
Right?
And,
You didn't hear that,
Do
Sandy?
not tell them which direction to ask from you.
in the
From
in
your
the vicinity
from
of
your
a
summer.
360-degree angle. But I didn't know, so I didn't smell anything or hear anything. My dogs didn't, freak out or anything.
Well, that's what I
So
was concerned about, dogs.
they're pretty mellow. I think roosters are a problem
Yeah.
because they're noisy.
Roosters would not be permitted.
Right.
And they're not currently, so.
Right.
No roosters.
So I don't want to get too far away from the answers that you need from us. So on C number 2, did you get what you needed?
I
as
did,
far as-
I saw consensus that, now on B, there,
Yeah.
in highlighted in yellow, I'm asking, do you want to limit the number of permits? Like I said, Neptune Beach, up to 25.
And Atlantic Beach was
So you
50.
see where I've got a big XX.
But
There
they
shall be no
haven't
more than
issued that many, you said, but nothing even close to that.
As of the date when I reached out to them, which again was in the spring when this all started, they had not reached the maximum, so.
I don't see why we should limit the numbers.
It can
I
always
don't
be-
see it turning into a
Yeah.
massive issue.
There's enough restrictions in here on what you can do with it.
Right, exactly.
So I'm going to strike that from, okay.
And then the Phil's point about the annual permit, I don't think we should require a renewal either.
It's currently
But
not.
you're-
I would say
Okay.
one
Yeah,
half.
not there.
Uh,
I have a question about, on page 3 of 6, when we start looking at size, we're gonna have lot coverage issues. Because these have to be, the enclosure has to be covered, and anything that's covered, counts as land,
Right.
as
no,
lot
for
coverage.
I believe that we limited this maximum size to 100
100
square feet.
and 50, and it'd be
Yeah.
50 and,
In most, well, that would be the actual enclosure, so I don't know if you've actually seen your neighbors. I also know some people with chickens, I won't tell you where they are, but they've got a little coop inside, yeah, Neptune. They've got a little coop inside the basically chain link fence enclosure that's covered. So that's the 100 square feet, and it's all dirt underneath. So the
So the
impact
only
of that
thing that's
coop
covered is just the
is
coop,
so
right?
minimal,
Right.
I really don't think that
I'm just thinking
lot
about
coverage would be impacted.
lot coverage in
Yeah.
residential 2 and 3, a lot of
Yeah.
those are, they're kind of maxed out, and the Board of Adjustment
Yeah.
has adjusted. And so if you've been adjusted,
Right.
and you're like at 60-70% lot coverage, can you still have a chicken coop? So should we have some kind of a thing in here that says that you still need to have X amount of square footage, or X amount of lot coverage, or do they have to go in front of the Board of Adjustments? Do you understand?
But
what
do we
I'm saying?
require that for
I know what
dog
you're saying,
kennels?
man. We've
No.
got-
Because I'm thinking about like,
Dog houses are temporary structures, they
Right.
can literally pick them up and move them.
Right.
So I wouldn't
But I
think
mean-
that these would be that impactful.
but they're supposed to be
So if
secured
we-
down to be able to get through a hurricane, which brings me to another
Right.
question. What are we going to do with the chickens during a hurricane? What do we expect them to do with the chickens during a hurricane?
Do we regulate what they do with dogs, right?
No.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
no, but we all
Take
want
your
to bring our
pet with
dogs
you.
with us.
Bring your chickens with you too.
Shelter doesn't take chickens.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't,
Oh, no,
I don't
it's
think we should
not.
differentiate, but if we're labeling these as pets, I don't think we should single out one pet over another. I mean, I know people that have large dogs and the dog houses are bigger than what we're proposing here. So I just think, and I see what you're saying. I mean,
Yeah,
I
the
see-
dog you
But
put
if you put,
inside,
but
the
if you put a
chickens have to
shed,
stay
if you put a
inside.
shed, if you put a shed, that counts towards lot coverage. If you build a small wooden deck, that counts too. So I mean, we
But a
have to
chicken
almost
coop
have to-
can be picked up and literally moved. It's off the ground, but the dirt is still in the bottom of it.
Well, I know,
It's
but I
just
think a
chicken
lot of
wire with
people-
some wood that you can pick up and move around wherever you want it. I think it's completely different.
No, but some sheds that just plates that can be moved, it's the same kind of thing. They're above ground, but the city does require them to discount them towards lot coverage. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know if we have to do an exception or something, or somewhere to clarify it, but.
well, yeah, I mean, again, how many of these do we think it's gonna, do you think it's gonna become an issue? If you think it may become an issue, then maybe we should.
I don't think it may become an issue, I just think they would conflict with what our current codes are. I mean,
Well,
If I have a swing set, do I need to go to the Board of Adjustment for my covered swing set that both neighbors have? No,
it's not covered.
it is covered. It's a
Some of them are.
playhouse,
Yeah,
kids
they got like a
playhouse.
little
You'll
climb
be-
up.
Did you get a permit for that though?
I mean,
But if we're talking about
No, I know what
3
you're
square
saying.
feet,
Yeah.
our chicken
I get what
is
you're
3
saying.
square
Well, I mean,
feet, it's not likely to be
it's
that
completely
impactful.
unnecessary.
And again, if it is, I mean, if it is, they wanna have a full 100 square foot, you know, just like we do with anyone else, if we try to work with folks, if they're gonna go over their lot coverage with something like a shed, we try to give them an opportunity to say, well, if you take out this little piece of unused concrete over here, you're gonna break even, so we try to work with people. If it were to be an issue, we would help them
So
figure out
it's
how
something,
to
it's
solve the
something that
problem.
you guys would,
And we do it now,
you
so.
would notice if there's an issue and you would say something.
Okay, so, but one more thing, which is, you have to get a building permit to put up a fence, and this has to be fenced in. And then you have to have an opaque fence so your neighbors don't see it, so they're also gonna have to go through the building department to get a building permit to be able to put up the fence, to put up the coop, to get the chickens.
If they don't already have a fence, yeah. Yes, fence would require a permit. These would not require permits, however. I actually spoke to the building official today. He said anything under 100 square feet does not require a building permit. And if the coops are temporary anyway, so it's like a doghouse wouldn't require a permit.
Yeah, I mean, if we're capping it at 5 hens, 5 chickens, you know, I don't think they're gonna build huge Taj Mahal chicken coops.
But people do.
Yeah. Well, and we'll have to make sure there's,
And they'll probably include them in their hurricane evacuation plan too.
yeah.
If they're building that. as-
Is the poultry seminar and all the other,
That's a good question. It is in some, in two, at least 2 of the others. And if you
which
want.
one is it not in?
It's not in Jackson.
Jacksonville, I believe, does require it, and Neptune Beach does require it. I believe it's Atlantic Beach that does not. But do you want to require completion? That is a question I have of the backyard poultry seminar in Duval County. And that's a yes, if you think it's a good idea, maybe not.
I think you should.
I think
it's a good
Atlantic Beach
idea.
actually does.
Okay.
To
Then we add that in. These are just questions I'm
Everybody
getting.
else-
So I have that all 3 of them require the poultry seminar
Yeah.
at Atlantic Beach, Neptune Beach, and Jacksonville.
Okay,
That's great.
good. Do it again.
But going back to page 3, there was the yellow there about, did we get an answer for you
Hens
on
that are no
that?
longer wanted by their owners, abandoned, released, Mr. Wild, or taken to animal control. Also going to add no slaughtering of the animal there.
But that's on G, you already have.
It is,
Yes.
but I do have a question in regards to, some of the others have, again, animal or protective services shall maintain a list. Another one says animal control shall maintain a list. And one of them says you have to take it to a very specific place, standard feed. I did do a little research to say, I could not confirm that standard feed is actually still doing this. Not sure if they are or they aren't. It's, do we want to mandate they have to do certain things with it, like take it to standard feed? Or, I did find 3 other places in or around the Jacksonville area that might do this relocation of hens no longer wanted. One was Celestial Farms, Florida Rescue Farm, or Rooterville in Melrose, Florida. But do you want to go so far as to say, thou shalt do something, because then the city needs to enforce that?
Right.
They say, we should just say what they cannot do with them, and it's up to them. Now, that said, wherever they get the permit, they should have some kind of information packet that also says, when you don't want them anymore, these are some ideas, or Google this, and we'll see what businesses are.
I think they do,
still.
actually. I think when they you start looking at these hen programs online, they're very connected, and they start telling them, if you need to get rid of your pets, please come to us. They have Google groups, they have networking. There is a hen
We've learned
networking.
there's a Facebook.
There's a Facebook page. So I will just leave it at the no slaughter, don't do this, don't do that. They can obviously revisit it if it becomes an issue. So the certificate, yes. The application fee, it ranged anywhere from $25 to $50. I thought staff may give you better input on what the potential workload might be that you're trying to cover, because that's what you would be charging the permit fee for.
Yeah, again, it wouldn't be much, very similar to the food trucks, making sure it's in the right zoning district, making sure the lot size and use is appropriate, based on what we've said, single family zoning district, only single family use. Looking at the permit, the site plan or boundary survey, making sure it's in the right location.
When you're gonna have code enforcement go by before they get their first chicken, or before they get the permit, just to look at, eyes on it? Because there's one thing of drawing a picture and there's another
Yeah.
one of what actually
I don't
goes
know
on.
that we'd need to ahead of time, but if, obviously if there was a complaint or an issue, we would go out there. We'd probably start with animal control and then code enforcement if needed. And there, you asked about food truck, there is no fee for that. I don't know why, but there's no fee.
It's not?
There is no
I thought
fee.
there was a
I thought we did do
Yeah, we
it.
voted on the fee.
No, well,
Couldn't find it, so y'all know.
$75 fee.
there should be.
Per location.
Per
That
location.
started before I got here, so we
Yeah,
couldn't find
no,
that.
there was,
couldn't
we
find
definitely
that
voted on the
resolution.
fee.
For sure.
And they, because they were upset about it because if they went to different spots.
Multiple
they had to do
locations,
different-
they had to get a different
Yeah.
permit for each, because it was location-based, not truck-based.
I'll do a little research
Yeah,
and
we
see
gotta
on
find
that.
that, let's find that resolution.
Yeah, definitely.
So if the chickens
For-
get
for
out, they're
food
gonna have little
trucks,
tags, so
there-
who they belong to.
Well, this is don't
Like
barbecue
a
meat.
little chicken tag. Oh, you belong.
Can the application fee be paid in eggs?
Excellent.
I've been waiting.
You were hanging on to that one.
The whole time, this whole time.
Okay.
I mean,
I would-
I'm
so
fine with the lower
25 or 50, I
amount
would say.
with
Well, 25, yeah.
I don't
What
think
were
we're
you gonna
talking
say
about
food trucks?
25.
Say food trucks are required to get a local business tax receipt, which is $79.20.
Yes.
The inspection and the permit provided by planning and developing, there's no fee. They give me that permit, once it's approved, I reach out to the food truck owner. At that time, they're required to come in and get a local business tax receipt, which is $79.20 annually.
And they can
Per
operate
location.
anywhere
Per
per
location.
location.
Yeah.
Per location, that's what it is.
It's just like any other business.
Okay.
All right, so 25?
I'm
Anyone?
hearing 25 sounds good. You change your
Going
mind?
once,
We'll have
going
time.
twice.
Two other
25 or 8 dozen eggs.
Delivered right to your seat.
$25 for life. That's a good deal.
So, the last thing I think that we need to talk about, I heard not interested in pilot programming this, we'll just put it in, and if it needs to be repealed, it can be repealed.
Right.
Enforcement options. So, you know, you can see I've got a couple of options down there. One is simply using your normal code enforcement, and that would go to your special magistrate, and then the violations would be outlined for that magistrate, and the magistrate would make such rulings. That keeps it really, in my mind, I always like using them where possible, only because Chapter 162 gives you fines. It's fines per, and you can also collect those easier because you can lien your properties.
Can we do it through the new board we're getting for code enforcement?
Are you doing it in board and code enforcement?
For the short-term rentals? I mean, is this something they could ever do also?
Oh, the Board of Appeals. No, that Board of Appeals is for fire code and building code. But you have a special magistrate that you currently use for your code enforcement, and it would just be added to her or whoever that, right now it's a her, but to their responsibilities. And I find that they're really good at interpreting your code, and or you can go down, I've seen others that say, we're gonna do this penalty thing, but then you've gotta try to collect them, and somebody in the city's gotta keep up with that system.
I would prefer the magistrate, because it's a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah, the violations, if it's animal cruelty, can we not revoke their permit?
Also criminal too, right?
Right now, it is.
Well, those are state actions currently,
Yeah.
right now, and I think the state attorney could pick it up. No, we don't have anything written in here, but I can certainly craft some language if you'd like to see that. To say if they get a state violation, that you revoke their permit for somebody who has to keep up with it, know about it, and enforce it.
Or if they've had one before.
Or the state, if they're doing it, the state's gonna come figure it
Yeah.
out. Honestly, I think, you know, you do.
Is there a question on the permit, on the application, to say if they've ever had,
There can be.
if they've ever had any questions?
Yeah, but if it's starve them, or if, you know what I mean?
Been
Fight
convicted
them,
or.
Or had your
Right.
permit
So,
revoked
I
for
think if I
position?
That's true.
Or just something about
Some
if they've
cockfighting
ever been
next
convicted
to
of
us.
animal cruelty.
But
or-
yeah, I mean,
or-
sometimes it takes the state too long.
A cockfighting joke?
I guess no question.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
I
a
mean-
self-report.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Yeah.
I guess it did. But so,
I'm sorry,
are
I
the
laughed.
state usually pretty
I laughed.
quick about deal, I mean, does anybody know of how quick they are to deal with cases of animal cruelty?
They're actually, just from my own experience, and I am involved in the animal law section of the Florida Bar, and they are becoming more and more diligent in upping the penalties and staying on top of it.
Mhm.
I will say that they lean more towards dogs, cats, and the others,
Right.
Haven't seen much on chickens because chickens are food. So, but if they're slaughtering within the city, that
Or if they're
obviously would be
starving
a
them, or if
violation.
they're not, they're neglecting them. I mean, I think it'd be, I wouldn't hurt to put something in there just to say that, you know, that maybe revoked should they not take care of their, I mean, we're
How
stating
about
the
just add
obvious.
that as a violation
Yeah.
where the slaughtering part is, put the neglect thing for Keith's Heart.
Yeah.
Well, I
Right.
also,
Chicken lover?
ability to revoke
Sounds-
permit and remove chickens for slaughtering or neglect of the animal.
Right.
Was that sound? And I will tell you, just for your own mind's sake, Department of Health has a whole lot of arm in being able to go onto people's property the minute it gets reported. The city can't because we have to go and we have to get a certain warrant to be able to go onto somebody's property. But you call the Department of Health, and we have had to do this in other jurisdictions, on say the animals have become neglected. You call Department of Health, they can go that day, that hour, and they can reach the property owner. So for peace of mind,
Good.
if you do get somebody involved, but I will.
So our animal control can't go on someone's property if there's a suspected neglect?
You have to get an inspection warrant. You know, code enforcement, animal control. Now, law enforcement, it doesn't matter. But animal control officers don't typically have full-on law enforcement powers. Unless they do. And if they do, they do. But for code enforcement purposes, you have to get an inspection warrant signed by a judge to go onto the property.
Or, yeah,
But if
could-
it's animal neglect, wouldn't that
It's
fall
criminal.
under animal control though? I would think.
Well, that's why you would involve Department of Health or and your local state attorney if it is truly criminal, because they do have the power and law enforcement can take them on. I don't know that our animal control is on any property. I wouldn't think so. They're usually for animals at large or that sort of issue. And on the beach or on other public property. But there are means. It's not to say there are not means. That's why relying on the Department of Health is good because they do have a greater inspection arm. They have a greater authority to go onto the property. But we will put something in there about slaughter and neglect of animals and the ability to revoke the permit.
And then I also had the, two of the cities, it was Neptune Beach and Jacksonville, also had in the requirements that no dog or cat that kills a hen shall, for that reason alone, be
It's
considered
in there.
dangerous.
It's in here.
or threatening.
It's in there.
I read that. Not where? On
I actually
page
just
5.
reading that.
I wasn't sure if I did or not.
Oh, 5.
Right there.
Yeah,
5,
585.
Yeah, it's in there.
Five.
5, oh, something similar.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, is that good? Perfect.
So thank you. That was the feedback.
Yeah, any other questions or egg puns?
Just about to ask for chicken fun.
Well, you did an excellent job.
Thank you. She did it.
Well done.
So can we look
Yes,
forward
team effort
to
for
this
sure.
on our agenda?
I'm thinking, when would you like?
Just want to be ready.
I'll make it ready when you need it.
I would say just obviously the soonest, end of January, beginning of February.
I'll have it ready for you.
Thank you.
Sure, it's appropriate.
I don't know what that means.
Tables.
Bring some chickens.
Those are the two topics that I see on the agenda, but I also see that our city attorney.
There are two more topics that we have to go over with you, with
Okay.
the city attorney person.
I have,
That's what I'm
have all the
but
other
not
items.
limited to.
Right now, that's what, like I think.
So if you want.
I have every animal ahead of me.
Lucky you.
So, the other issue that Mike suggested we bring you up to speed on if we have time, which seems like we do. Just one thing with respect to part of the duties of the city attorney. So I would say nearly every day, or at least every week, I deal with litigation, claims against us, claims being brought against us, pre-suit litigation type of activities, risk management, and that's relating to the city, Beaches Energy, and the police department. So I'm spending a great deal of time dealing with those types of tasks. And we're not even deep into a heavy-duty litigated case, but if that comes up, it's going to take a lot of my time if I'm handling it by myself or if I'm working with outside counsel. So already handling cases with outside counsel, it takes up a lot of your city attorney's time. So one thing we don't have on the books is something that we're entitled to have, which is, well, let me just step to the side. You know, eventually we'll be redrafting the Code of Ordinances and the Charter, and so piece by piece, we're looking at sections of it, and eventually that's one of the projects we're gonna have to get to. But the city attorney section isn't very developed, and it's not developed to the extent of having in-house general counsel the way you have. So that's part of what we'll redraft. But what local government agencies are entitled to, including the city, they're entitled to seek reimbursement for its city attorney's fees and time spent on litigation. So the way the section for city attorney reads now is that essentially I shall prosecute and defend for and in behalf of the city all complaints, suits, controversies, and proceedings where the city's a party. What we don't have is a resolution in place that says that the city council is authorizing and recognizing that the city should seek reimbursement for my fees at a high level that we're entitled to seek as a board certified specialist in city, county, local government law. And those fees are at a high level that aren't what I'm getting paid at. So although the city may get my services at a discount, those parties that we're litigating against, they are not entitled to the same discount. So case law shows that when I spend time, so an hour on a case, for example, that hour is or should be reimbursable at a high, reasonable expert rate. Typical rates range, somewhere between $200 and $300 for board certified specialists. The city is not limited to recovery of my hourly rate based on my salary that the city pays me. Instead, the reimbursable rate should be that of similar experts in the community for the reasonable prevailing rate that those experts get paid to handle cases in litigation. So essentially what I'm seeking is just for your thumbs up or head nod to begin the drafting of a resolution that's going to essentially establish that the city council does want the city attorney, when handling litigation, to then go forth with the extra steps of seeking to reimburse the city for those hours and expenses that I've spent defending or prosecuting a claim on behalf of the city. So the resolution would be a brief resolution, and it would be supported by other board certified specialists that essentially, agree that the city is entitled to recover those expert rate fees and not limited to seek reimbursement for a discounted rate, and B, that they agree that this is the reasonable range for experts in my field within our community. So I'm sort of jumping ahead of the code because it's going to take a while for us to get to the code. Got a list of things to do, but I'd like to get the resolution in place because as I'm dealing with attorneys that are challenging us, I want them to know that we're not playing a game with respect to me seeking reimbursement for the city attorney's fees. And I don't want them thinking that they're going to get away with some discount rate, but that we have on the books city council direction to go for it, so to speak, and get the recovery of the higher prevailing expert rate.
Do other cities do that?
They do, absolutely, yeah. And the county that I last worked with, we had a code and a resolution in place that had exactly that. And what that does for me is, at the conclusion of a case, well, typically we're able to recover or seek reimbursement for our fees through either a contract or a statute or a fee shifting mechanism. Either one of those, I can go to a judge and try to seek recovery of the attorney's fees for the city. with having an ordinance and a resolution in place, and again, the resolution is supported by affidavits signed by other board-certified specialists in our field, I go to a judge, and that strengthens my argument to a judge of just what amount the city is entitled to recover. At least it strengthens my ability to seek the reimbursement. The judge may not agree with us, that's what I'm worth, but it's a good substantial amount of law and resolution that I bring to a judge, and you know, it's supported by 3 or 4 other experts in the field with their affidavits. And also, it starts me at this level when negotiating, and if negotiating with an opposing attorney that's either sued us or we've had to sue, rather than starting down here. Because I may have spent 300 hours on a case, and the city, that's 300 hours that the city did not get from me working on the other 5 dozen other items. And the city residents shouldn't be responsible for that massive expense. The party that was not the prevailing party, because in this case we would be the prevailing party, which would entitle us to fees, that party should have to pay that fee. And it includes my fee, it includes all the time and costs that the staff absorbs, you know, because if I'm working on something, a staff member's working on something, inevitably, you know. At this point it's Chris Wright, and as things cross my desk and move forward, Chris Wright is inevitably spending time doing something on it. So that's essentially what I'm coming forward with, is just that I wanted to seek your approval to spend time working on a resolution to get that on the books. Because each day that goes by, as I realize the time is accumulating on these claims and risk and litigation, and I don't want the city's hands tied in any way, you know, to try to seek reimbursement for its highest possible rate that the city's entitled to recover.
I'm surprised that's not already in place. That would have been my assumption.
Yeah, a lot of local governments don't know about that.
Yeah.
But there's 5 or 6 really strong cases, published cases, that say essentially a local government agency is not limited to recovery of its attorney's fees, subject to just the attorney's salary. When you have a board certified specialist as your city attorney, that city should be entitled to seek reimbursement for its highest level of expert fees in that given community. So,
But there's a lot that also goes into, in addition to your salary, your cost to the city.
yeah,
From just pension and
yeah,
health
it's
insurance.
right, and they tend to call it a loaded,
Yeah.
you know. So there's the salary plus benefits, or
Right.
the quote unquote unloaded, yeah. And even with the, you know, a city attorney who's on salary, the loaded rate or the salary plus benefits, it doesn't, you know, it's not equal to what an hourly expert's getting paid.
Right.
So,
Is
Yeah.
the amount the same, or is the ability to ask for reimbursement the same if you're supervising outside counsel? Is that all?
It'll
all
be-
the same situation?
yeah, the way that's going to work is I would have to demonstrate. So for example, there's currently a matter, and I can't get into it too much right now, but there's currently a matter that one of our outside counsel specialists who has helped the city on claims and cases and litigation before, he and I have already been required to spend a lot of time on this. It's pre-suit. If we cross the threshold of a complaint getting filed against us, he and I are going to be working together. At the end of that litigation, if we're the prevailing party, he will be submitting for recovery of his fees. I'll be doing the same for the time that I spent once that complaint was filed. And I will have to demonstrate to the court my fee, my hours, and my reasonable fee for those hours spent. So I would be shown to the judge as the supervising attorney, as the in-house counsel for the city, but also as a participating and litigating attorney as well. So in cases where I'm working a case, if it's significant enough and I'm involved in it with our outside counsel, we would both be submitting our, quote unquote statements or invoices or time and billing to the court to seek reimbursement. So in cases where we're in litigation, I'm gonna have to maintain my schedule of work time on that particular case and utilize that to the judge, to file with the judge to seek reimbursement. So yeah, as supervising attorney and also co-litigating attorney, we're both gonna be seeking recovery. Yeah.
Is there insurance cover if we lose cases and if there was a substantial legal fee? Is there a way of recovering that through insurance?
So do you mean recovery for amounts that I spent?
Right.
No.
And there's not?
No.
Is it?
The recovery is against the losing party as prevailing party.
Right.
So that's part of the benefit that the city gains from having in-house general counsel is that the city and its policy and its insurers will not be paying as much for outside counsel services because there will be, large fractions of work that on cases that will be handled by me that you would normally be paying for an outside law firm. And by the way, that outside law firm is charging those very high hourly rates.
Sure.
So the answer is no.
Yeah, I just remember that case at Church of Our Savior, their attorney was charging like $675 an hour, which is crazy. And I mean, some of our stuff was covered, but the majority of it was not, wasn't it? We had to pay.
A large fee, a large bill.
Yeah. The citizens had to pay it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's where it came from.
Yeah. Yeah, and we can't turn to our policies to recover my fees.
Right.
But we have several ways of recovering the time.
Just don't lose any cases.
I can't lose cases, yeah. And I hate losing cases. Oh, yeah, so we won't be losing cases. I promise, no.
It's being recorded.
So, I know. So what I'm requesting is just so that you authorize me to spend the time to develop that, because as Counselor Nichols showed or said, there isn't anything like that for the city at this time.
Right.
And that was one of the things when I first came on board was, how can I quickly benefit the city? That's one of the ways it's low-hanging fruit.
Yep.
So that's one thing. So I'd like to get working on that.
That's
Okay. Get it on the books, and we'll continue fighting these claims and cases, and knowing that that's something that we have in place.
Yeah,
There's a
great.
consensus.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question while you're at the table.
Sure.
How's the low-speed vehicle research going?
I've done some research on that, and the latest that I've looked into was the Jacksonville ordinance, which I'd be glad to forward to everyone. And the Jacksonville ordinance speaks to golf carts. So it does not provide for, and it's been enacted, so I think it was a 2018 ordinance, and it is in their code of ordinances now. Jacksonville, so, yeah, so I'm
Duval
starting,
County just split to Nocatee.
Yeah.
Has both.
Gotcha.
and I'll tell you the St. Johns County one. But for Jacksonville, theirs is acceptable to me, and I know we're being recorded. But it's good, it's well done. It is a golf cart code, essentially. And what they've done is they've allowed for golf carts to be used in certain circumstances. And it doesn't speak to low-speed vehicles. It's not a code that authorizes use of low-speed vehicles necessarily. And I'll forward that to each of you tonight. The St. Johns County ordinance, however, I perceive that in a different way. I think that they have blended two different statutes in a way that I would say might not be permissible. So they seem to be mixing golf carts and low speed vehicles and use of those and the allowed use of those in a way that I don't think is correct. And it's notable that Jacksonville just did this in 2018 And they've clearly kept golf carts and low-speed vehicles separate in their code.
So in their code, you can drive a golf cart on golf cart
Golf
paths,
paths.
and the only place you can drive them on a road is if you're crossing the street. Because you can't use them on streets.
Right. And they've kept low-speed vehicles slash mini trucks
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, of course.
So that's the way the statute reads, which is there's a low-speed vehicle and mini truck statute. Mini trucks, by the way, are authorized to go 55 miles per hour. So the low-speed vehicle and mini truck statute is separate from the golf cart statute. The Jacksonville code really addresses the golf cart statute.
But in Jacksonville Beach, we don't have many places at all that a golf cart could be
Right.
legally used.
Right. The two, I should say that, and let me extend it a little further. Jacksonville says that the golf cart usage is for the most part, designated golf cart paths. And they have to go through a very extensive process of the city engineer and traffic department. This is categorized under their traffic chapter in Jacksonville. So it's a very extensive process that Jacksonville calls for golf cart paths to be installed and then ultimately for the golf carts to be used there. In St. Johns County, it appears that they have mixed the concept of golf cart path and multi-use path along with golf cart communities and non-golf cart communities but unincorporated St. Johns County. I have a lot of trouble with the ordinance that came out of St. Johns County. The Jacksonville ordinance seems to be a better model for these two types of statutes that are here.
So what you're saying is there cannot be a low-speed vehicle path at the gate?
At this point, that is what I'm saying. Yeah. I still haven't found the authority for a low-speed vehicle to be used on anything that's other than a street. And certainly I haven't found anything that shows for a low-speed vehicle and or a mini truck, because if I'm going to carve out low-speed vehicle, then I need to treat mini trucks differently. However, the Florida legislature does not, for the most part, they've couched them in the same statute. So I would have to separate low-speed vehicle from a lot of the same definitions and restrictions that are shared in the Florida statute between low-speed vehicle and mini trucks. But I don't find anything that says that on a mixed-use path, you can have pedestrians, bicyclists, golf carts, and low-speed vehicles, and or for that matter, mini trucks.
Never heard. What's a mini truck? I've never
I looked
seen
it up.
Did you?
They started in Japan. It was a Japanese thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it looks like a little,
Like a-
I mean,
like a
like
shrunken-
a flatbed with a little cab.
Yeah.
Kind of see
Like
it
a gator thing?
Yeah, it's very similar to what you see fire rescue
enclosed.
use
Yeah.
on some
Okay.
occasions.
Yeah.
And it's outfitted with almost all of the same equipment that a truck would have.
Mhm.
Lights, bumpers,
So it's
seat
tagged.
belts,
Yeah.
tags. Yeah, so you have to have a valid driver's license to drive it as well as a low-speed vehicle.
Mhm.
And it can operate up to 55 miles per hour.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Well, just thinking about this gate issue, I mean, there's on First Street is it on their 20th, where there's the road, it was put in to stop people cruising historically,
Mhm.
but you can't drive a car through there,
Right.
but you can drive a golf cart through there. Or
Right by the church.
Yes,
Yeah, I don't think you're supposed to drive a golf cart through.
or low-speed vehicle, not a golf cart.
Everything else through there.
Right, but I mean, I know it's not something that's enforced. Are we looking at this too deeply? Because we need to make some headway on this as far as just to keep those residents from killing each other.
Well, what if the gate went, if the street was a certain width and the gate went
you know,
That's
a
right.
certain width, but
Right.
just not far enough so
To
that
have a
the
low-speed
other.
vehicle lane.
Right.
Right.
And
You
then
can't
you
have it as a
still,
low-speed vehicle because then then it would have to be designated as street.
But yeah, and remember that street is a vehicular traffic roadway that is
Oh.
open for the public use. And so that road, again, with the gate being closed, as the council determined at this stage, that's not a public street. It's not open for public use on a regular routine basis. It is truly just going to remain a emergency access route with limited use for limited purposes. And for the gate to be raised only under very
But
few
there-
exceptions.
But what
There
about
is
a
a-
low-speed vehicle lane? It doesn't, remember we talked about the statute that doesn't require them to be driven on streets? It just says, whatever we talked about last time.
And just, and
I know you
this
brought
wasn't,
this
this
up.
wasn't an item on for tonight, and I'm
I
not sure
think
that
we
Chris has
followed that.
finished his
All right,
analysis and bringing information back to council for consideration. But
Just
there's,
making sure it doesn't fall off. the
Oh, it's
radar.
not.
it's not off his radar.
It's
It
not.
is on his radar.
It's there.
It doesn't
promise.
need centering, you know.
But I think he
I
still
promise,
needs,
I
I think he
promise.
still needs a little bit more time to
Yeah, I mean, we're
write up
digging in.
what
We're digging
options
in.
are or not.
And I really am. I mean, I really am looking for all alternatives, every way to find solutions for all of these issues. And I'm keeping an open mind about all of it, of course, with the city, with the council's guidance and instruction. But yeah, I'm researching it all.
Did you have a second item?
We've
No.
got one more item,
Okay.
another financial item to go
I
over.
had a question for you. Could you also get an update on the public works director, if that?
Scheduled to start January 6th. That was on my
Thanks,
list.
Chris.
Hey, thank you.
Dennis Barron, he is currently the Public Works Director for the city of East Peoria, Illinois. He will be coming down here after the
January, that'd be
holidays,
nice.
and starting January 6th.
So he's paid us to come to work here, right? Can I also get an update on the construction on, it's like the 11th, 12th South 2nd Street? If you have, are they doing CPM schedules?
They're supposed to be?
Can we, if possible, kind of get an update, because I'm getting asked a lot of, and especially with the car break-ins and stuff down there.
We can try to get that.
Thank you.
And then if Ashley can come on up. If council may recall during the budget prep, when we went over the budget assumptions with you and then with the budget showcase, one of the things we talked about was for the South Beach CRA was looking to go to a reduced TIF increment in the south end because we can see the light at the end of the tunnel for the capital projects and we no longer have the fiscal need to collect that much money. Also, the south end is effectively built out in accordance with the plan. You have a lot of new infrastructure down there, some O&M activities that we need to ultimately get a handle on and schedule accordingly. One of the things that Ashley has indicated is that as we've done the closeout for fiscal year 2019, it seems we hit the mark sooner than we thought. We actually have an excess of funds in the South End CRA trust fund, and we're going to need to do a reallocation of those funds back to the originating sources. So we're looking at approximately $4.5 million that needs to be returned. That would be $3 million going to Jacksonville and $1.5 million coming back to us in the general fund. So that's a little bit ahead of schedule than we thought, but the excess funds are there. They're not tagged to capital projects as required under state statute. So the process that we would go from here forward is to return those funds accordingly.
Does it benefit us to create projects? When is that deadline?
Well, I think right now we have projects identified out for the next several years, but there's, in terms of capital projects, we don't have any that are tied to the plan or in accordance with the plan.
Correct, and we are continuing to receive monies for the TIF district. So we have not yet executed an agreement to reduce the TIF money, so each year we'll continue to get in excess of $4.5 million into the TIF fund. So if we were to create projects within the plan, there's funding coming in future years.
I mean, I could see a massive problem with the off-ramp of JTB and that stop sign at Marsh Landing. I don't know if that falls into that area.
No, it's on DOT, right?
It's DOT.
Yeah.
I know JTB's DOT, but are the access roads?
I believe the access roads are DOT controlled as well.
Well, okay.
I have to
I
go
mean,
back
well,
and check the right-of-way map.
All right, it's
I believe they are.
But that's something that, if it's not, if there's nothing we can do with the TIF funds, it's something that we should definitely put on our radar with the DOT. But I just find it hard to believe that there's nothing we can do down there, really.
Especially with the exit, do some kind of like single lane overpass, so the people going into Marsh Landing can still make that turn without having.
Well, yeah, no, but I'm saying the road for sure, yeah, there's different things we could talk about to alleviate that issue, but if it's a DOT problem, it's a DOT problem. I'm talking about the redevelopment funds. You know,
There's a couple of things that we're doing. Internally, we're taking a look at the area to see if there are any additional capital projects that we can identify.
Right.
And projects that make sense. The second thing too is that we need to keep in mind what the original intent of the CRA is for. And a CRA is to help build out an area, or it's to help eliminate slum and blight. And in this particular case, we're at probably 95 to 98% build out in the South Beach CRA. The last thing we want to do is put ourselves in a position where we end up like some of the communities in South Florida, where they have become the poster children for CRA, where all of a sudden there's proposed legislation to strip CRAs completely out of local communities. So while we do want to look for legitimate capital projects that we can spend these funds on, we also don't want to make the projects so outrageous that we start drawing attention from local legislators.
Yeah,
So-
for sure. I mean, I don't think we should build a space needle or anything, but,
No.
you know.
Unless
although
there's a
you
casino
look at it all the
involved.
time and think,
And then
If there's a
it's
casino
like-
involved with it, then that's a possibility.
I like continuity, conformity, like the traffic signs at Jacksonville Drive and South Beach Parkway are very nice. And we have those nowhere else. And it looks really nice. And I don't understand why we can't incorporate that to the rest of the beach, at least in the south end. And every time I'm driving, I have no idea where 11th Street South is. I have no idea where 9th Street South is. You have to stare. We have a sign that's this big. I understand we don't have any overpassing poles like we do at Jacksonville Drive or stoplights there, so it's a little bit more difficult. But everywhere we have a stoplight should look like that,
yeah.
that intersection, and it does not.
I want to see it North Jack Street too.
Yeah, for sure.
Realize that this past week.
That's not in the CRA.
No, I know, but if
Still.
money's coming back to the general fund.
Exactly,
Then-
exactly.
Which
It just
is,
seems, yeah, we're wasting three, and not wasting, but the $1.5 to $3 million ratio is not in our best interest.
I'm still
Yeah.
waiting for street signs on the beach. Still missing them. It's
So-
only been about 3-4 years.
one of the
Just for
things.
Still
the
asking.
building.
One of
Still
the-
asking.
Had to do when we were kids.
One of the things that Ashley and I wanted to bring up with you is, Mr. Ambrosio is still researching whether or not we need to do a resolution from council. The CRA has already adopted a resolution to redisperse the funds in accordance with state statutes. But when that comes back to council, should those funds be earmarked for specific capital reserves? And is there anything special that should be done with those funds? So.
So when are you saying we'll give that money back to Jacksonville, the $3 million,
Yeah,
next year?
whenever we figure out if we have to have your formal approval to send the funds back, as one of the original taxing authorities, they would receive their portion of the millage rate.
Are they aware of that?
I do not know.
I've had a verbal conversation with Mr. Hughes from a few months ago where I let him know that our intention was to reduce the South End TIF, and that would result in revenues coming back to Jacksonville. He's unaware that we're hitting that mark a little bit earlier and they will be getting funds back sooner than expected.
But it's not like they don't spend money in Jacksonville Beach too. The new drive to the boat ramp, they're gonna redo that road. I think that's about $7 million. They've got, I mean, there's a lot of other stuff that they spend money on, so it's kind of like the county, we're not losing, they were losing all of it. Gotcha.
I didn't get a chance to complain about something in the South End. The paddles behind Bed Bath & Beyond, when we redid that whole interchange there to keep people from turning left onto
The ducks.
They are, I've hated them since it was a diagram on the plan. They're terrible. Half of them are falling over. It just looks, the whole area back there looks so nice. They're terrible.
That's our almost take them all out. I slowed down and I think you can.
It serves its purpose.
It serves its
You're
purpose.
talking
And
about the
there's-
ducks in the right of way between there and Ocean Terrace?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's much better now that you can't take a left out of
Yes,
there,
it is
and
much-
I am fine with them having been a temporary, but they look terrible.
It sounds like there's a lot of transportation infrastructure needs that you would like to reserve a portion of this
It
money
just
for
makes
going
And
forward.
also North
Look a
Jack
lot
Beach.
nicer.
To include street signs.
Correct.
Out of that.
It's
Beach.
also a drainage issue, and I don't know how far back that stuff goes. You'll hear about that Thursday.
Okay.
And that's in a different ditch, that's not in TIF stuff.
Is there anything particular that you needed from?
Yeah,
me
but this
tonight?
water rising in the CRA and float that way.
Some arguments that
Do you have anything else?
Yes, just two other quick things. We're good on finance, thank you, Ashley. Two other things. Tomorrow is our annual holiday luncheon. Each of you is invited if you hadn't already received an invitation. Starts at 11:30, goes till 1 o'clock. We have a North Pole Express theme, woo woo.
This one is staff, not police.
This is the city employee luncheon. It will
Would you
be
say
held
11
at
to 1?
11:30 to 1, and it will be at the community center. And we'd love to have you all there. Say hi to the employees. Be a great time. There will not be a cash bar or an open bar, just letting you know that in advance.
At 11:30?
At 11:30.
Thank you for
For
that
those-
clarification.
We do have retirees that are invited as well. And then the last thing is to let you know that Chris Wright and I have laid out a series of meetings for community conversations to start establishing a City of Jacks Beach vision. Chris is going to start plugging in dates and times on calendars. When we have that plugged in, she's going to reach out to each of you because I would like to have at least one council member present at each of those meetings. Some will be in the evening, some will be during the daytime, and there might be one or two on a weekend as well. But the intention would be to have a council rep at each one so that the residents that are showing up will understand that the council is interested in hearing what the residents have to say about where the future of Jacks Beach is going.
Awesome.
I have
More
people
than
who want
one
to be
meeting?
involved in this. They've been contacting me for newsletters.
We're in the process of working up a press release that will go out. Hopefully we can get Kathy Bailey to write a nice article. The intention will be that these conversations will have no more than about 12 people per meeting. It's more of a roundtable conversation. It uses the Harwood Institute technique of community conversations. If you want to look it up, you can find it online. And the intention is you can only sign up for one meeting. So that way you can't have one person who shows up to 6 or 8 meetings. It's, you get to go to one, you get your input at one, and then leave a spot for somebody else.
You're going to give us the dates and the times so I can email those people who contact.
Chris Wright will be sending those out to you in short order within the next probably 5 to 10 days.
The workshop on Thursday.
Yes.
I asked if that was going to be, I noted that it was kind of a busy time of year and night of the week. So I'm unable to attend, but is it going to be live streamed? Is it going to be recorded? What is the
I do
plan
not
on that?
know if it's going to be live streamed.
It would be good if it could be recorded.
I'll ask Heather, because I was
Yeah.
Which one is that?
That's the one
Thursday,
for
Sea Level Rise.
Sea Level Rise. And that's one where we had received a grant in order to do some information collection and sharing. So this is actually Stearns Weaver Miller. We have a representative from their firm that's going to be here helping with that presentation.
Or at least maybe a briefing for us on what was, I don't know if anybody's going to be able to make
What
it.
does the CRA have tomorrow night?
What does the CRA have tomorrow?
I mean, tomorrow night, are they having some kind of, something to talk about hiring the new CRA person and,
They have, I don't have a copy of the agenda with me on my desk, but I believe they do have a meeting tomorrow night at 5. And
Francis posted something that it was about the vision and the
I believe
hiring the new person and what they're gonna ask for kind of their,
Is that it online?
Francis posted something.
No, I mean like on the city's website for the agenda.
There should be some kind of,
Denise May is going to present some information about what the CRA authority is and so forth. That was part of the discussion.
Okay, anything else of urgent nature we need to get over to our 7 o'clock meeting? Is everybody good for 7 o'clock?
7:02.
5 minutes.
Believe the mayor's here.
7:05.
7
Okay.
o'clock, good?
Thank you all.
For Thursday, 7 o'clock, you good with that?
I guess I have to.